Yeah, I saw a comment the other day that I thought, well, I've already done that. Which was, why don't you do a video on the career of Cam Neely? I was like, oh, I've done a Neely video. Let's go ahead and there's a what? I haven't done a really. So one of my all-time favorite players. This is one of the few jerseys I've ever had custom made, and of course the 1990 Stanley Cup. I got this separate, so I got the jersey with Cam Neely's name on it, and then I got the 1990 patch. And this was just Stanley Cup championship. This is not stating the Bruins won the Stanley Cup. Because every now and then people will see this and they'll go, he actually thinks the Bruins won the Cup that year? No. No, I am aware of who won the Cup that year, but that was one of those years that made me a Bruins fan. And of course, this is also going to answer part of the question for some of the newer subscribers. How can he cheer for the Canucks and the Bruins? Here's how. So, 1983, Cam Neely's a number 9 pick. BC, born and raised. Born in Comox, Maple Ridge kid. And so BC had watched Neely grow up, and they were excited. And 83, 84, he comes into the league. Is he ready? Maybe, maybe not. 56 games, 16 goals, 15 assists, 31 points. Makes his playoff debut for the Canucks. 4 games, gets 2 goals. So overall, his rookie season, not too bad. But Vancouver wants something more. And so the following season, it's a mixed bag. 72 games, 21 goals, 18 assists, 39 points. I cannot stress enough in the mid-80s just how bad Vancouver was. And this was year in and year out. They were bad. Now, every now and then they make the playoffs because their division was awful. And 4 out of 5 teams make the playoffs. And since 2 of them were good and 3 of them were mostly mediocre, it was often that you'd see Calgary and Edmonton were the best. There was that one year that Winnipeg was pretty good. But generally, it was a division of 2 teams. So every now and then the Canucks make the playoffs, which kind of hid the fact that they didn't belong in the playoffs. 85, 86, 73 games, 14 goals, so his goals drop, 20 assists, 34 points. His points drop, and in the playoffs, no points in 3 games. There's no indication with Cam Neely through the first 3 years of his career of what is to come. The Vancouver Canucks, they need help down the middle. They're looking for a center. They feel that Neely on the wing, it's not really a good fit. And so, while we can look back and say they could have traded one of their other wingers, the reality was they felt that Neely, well, he's 3 years in, this might be who he is, we're willing to move him. So the Boston Bruins can't jump fast enough. June 6, 1986, he's traded with the 1987 first-round draft pick, which would become Glenn Wesley, in exchange for Barry Peterson. Barry Peterson coming off of, I believe it was a 76-point season for Boston. So 76-point season for Barry Peterson, 34-point season for Neely, and that's why you have to throw in a first-rounder as well. Boston wins this trade going away, but it's because Neely fits in so much better with Boston. As soon as he throws this jersey on, it's just perfect. It is a perfect match. It is a perfect fit. He was meant to be a Bruin. And this was the year that I said, all right, well, I have a team in the West in Vancouver. I don't really have a team in the East I cheer for. I'll pick Boston. And the fact my dad's favorite team was Montreal made it even better. Because it was like, yep, Neely's in Boston. And then seeing how Neely played that first year, it reinforced that. And then they ended up with Andy Moog as well. And Moog was one of my favorite goalies from Edmonton. I felt Edmonton had hosed him for years. And so that's how the fandom of Boston was born. 86, 87, because I didn't see any problem with cheering for one team from the West and one team from the East. I mean, they're not going to meet unless it's in the Stanley Cup Finals. And what are the odds of that? So 75 games his first year in Boston, 36 goals, 36 assists, 72 points. That's right. His first year in Boston, he scores as many goals, plus 1, that he had scored his previous 2 years in Vancouver. 72 points, 1 point less than his previous 2 years in Vancouver. And then in the playoffs, 4 games, 5 goals, 1 assist, 6 points. He's a star. A star is born, and you can see Vancouver's not getting any better. Barry Peterson's first year in Vancouver wasn't awful, but comparatively speaking, with Neely's 36 goals in Boston and that number 1 draft pick, which becomes a very high draft pick because Boston is much better than Vancouver. Vancouver still sucks. And so that draft pick becomes Glenn Wesley. It all becomes this giant issue for Vancouver. 87, 88. 69 games played by Neely, 42 goals, 27 assists, 69 points. So his first 40-goal season. In the playoffs, 23 games played, 9 goals, 8 assists, 17 points. See, while Vancouver is still mired in mediocrity, Boston goes all the way to the Stanley Cup final and loses against the Edmonton Oilers in those finals. So he's a second-team All-Star. In the playoffs, he shows he's a warrior. 40 games in the regular season, or 40 goals in the regular season, fantastic. 88-89, he plays his second All-Star game in a row. 74 games, 37 goals, 38 assists, 75 points. If you're going to establish yourself as a reasonable, basically you can set your watch by how many points and goals you're going to get, that's a pretty good bar, is more than 35 goals. In the playoffs, 10 games, 7 goals, 2 assists, 9 points. So Boston's out early-ish in the playoffs in 89, but for Neely, he is bona fide All-Star. He's been in 2 All-Star games in a row. 89-90, 76 games, 55 goals. So his first 50-goal season, he's third in the NHL in goals that year, 37 assists, 92 points. In the playoffs, Boston goes to the Stanley Cup final again. 21 games, 12 goals, 16 assists, 28 points, and they lose to the Oilers. Right. Neely does have a cup ring from his time in Boston, but it's as team president from 2011. Now, he's a second-team All-Star. He has 12 game-winning goals that year, which is first in the National Hockey League. So you got 55 goals, and if you need a game winner, it's probably going to come off the stick of Cam Neely. What's not to love? So for me, again, as a hockey fan getting into 89-90, remember, Vancouver hasn't had a winning season the entire time I've been watching them. I've been watching them since 1981. They've never had a winning season. They've never been above 500. Boston, 2 Stanley Cup final runs. Kind of feel like, all right, as a teenager, I love my Boston stuff. So 90-91, as I go through my grad year, 69 games, 51 goals, 40 assists, 91 points. So I got my first Bruins jersey in 90, and I started wearing a lot in 90-91, to the point where when I had my picture taken for something for school, I made sure I wore my Bruins jersey for that. So that's when I'm full on Bruins. Now, he's number 2 in goal scoring, so if I would have had a name on the back of my Bruins jersey, it's Neely. As much as I love Bork, as much as I love Moog, and Oates would become one of my favorite Bruins, but yeah, it's Neely. In the playoffs, 19 games, 16 goals, 4 assists, 20 points. So that's the year they lose against Pittsburgh, right? Pittsburgh takes them out. He's a second-team All-Star. But the headline coming out of that series, coming out of that year, is May 3rd of 1991. He took a check by Ulf Samuelsson that, let's just say, Bruins fans and most NHL fans didn't like so much. And that was in Game 3. And then he got a hit on the knee in Game 6. So Ulf Samuelsson became public enemy number 1 with Bruins fans and with a lot of hockey fans as well. And yeah, so coming out of that, Neely's hurt. He will never play more than 50 games in a season again. And this was why I didn't think he was going to make the Hall of Fame. Whenever, I'd get asked, do you think Cam's going to make the Hall of Fame? My answer was always no. I don't think he played enough games. 91-92, he plays 9 games. 9 goals, 3 assists, 12 points. Yeah, he's still scoring a goal a game, but because of thigh and knee injuries, both stemming from this incident, series of incidents basically, will eventually end his career. 92-93, he plays 13 games. He had knee surgery that year. 11 goals, 7 assists, 18 points. In the playoffs, 4 games, 4 goals, 1 assist, 5 points. So when Neely plays, he's fantastic. He's almost a goal a game. But he's not in the lineup very often. And this is the issue for Boston. 93-94, he has a tremendous comeback. We had expected a retirement out of him around this time. 49 games, 50 goals, 24 assists, 74 points. He's 8th in goal scoring that year. He had 50 goals in 44 games. He's playing with Adam Oates. And it is such a natural fit of Neely and Oates. And it is so sad that Neely only plays the 49 games. If Neely had been able to be healthy playing with Adam Oates, I think he could have put up an 86-goal season like Brett Hull had done previously. Oates was just that good at knowing when and how to pass the puck. So he's second team All-Star that year. He gets the Masterton Trophy for dedication to the game, and he has 13 game-winning goals, which is first in the NHL. This is an, I believe, 84-game schedule in 93, 94. And even though he plays 49 games, he leads the league in game-winning goals. The difference between Boston when he's in the lineup and when he's not is tremendous. And it makes it even more heartbreaking for Bruins fans that he does get the 50 goals in 44 games, and yet he's not right. He's still being scratched often because they got to rest his knee. Guy can barely walk. 94-95, lockout shortened 48-game season. He plays 42 of those games, scores 27 goals, which was 9th overall in the NHL, 14 assists, 41 points. In the playoffs, this is the last time he'd appear in the playoffs. 5 games, 2 goals, 0 assists, 2 points. He had 16 power play goals that year, which was first in the NHL. So 16 of his 27 goals are on the power play. Makes sense. His knee, not very good. His mobility is a problem. On the power play, that won't be as much of an effect on his game as it's going to be 5-on-5. He just doesn't have that mobility 5-on-5 anymore. And yet he's still top 10 in the league in goal scoring, and he leads the entire National Hockey League in power play goals. He is a natural goal scorer. 95-96, what would be his final season? He plays in the All-Star game that year. 49 games, 26 goals, 20 assists, 46 points. Again, very strong totals when he's in the lineup. He's just not in the lineup a lot. Now, 95-96, we're getting into when Boston starts to really fall apart. And they fall apart quickly. But I always thought that part of what sped up Boston falling apart was not having that healthy Cam Neely. And that if he'd been healthy, if he'd been able to play a full career, who knows? Plays 726 games in his career, 395 goals, 299 assists, 694 points. And I remember when he retired, and he retired in 1996 due to a degenerative hip condition, which begins in 1991 with that check he takes. He did try a 1998 comeback, but I remember looking at the 395 goals and saying, I don't think he's going to make the Hall of Fame because he didn't get to 400 goals. I thought 400 goals was necessary. I thought more than 694 points was necessary. Also, interestingly, he had 1,241 penalty minutes. His hip, what happened was explained that the muscle was becoming bone. And basically, I believe he's had at least one hip replacement. I don't know that it's been 2, but I know he had at least one. When he tried his comeback, he said the biggest problem for him wasn't necessarily the hip as much as just trying to get his wind back and trying to get back into shape. So it didn't work, but I remember in 98 when he tried it, I thought if there's any player who, while the lower half of his body is trying to leave him, if there's anybody who's going to be able to fight through that and play hockey, it's Cam Neely. He was a warrior, and he made me a Bruins fan immediately because he had left the Canucks, where I had watched him and I'd hoped he'd get better, and with Boston, it just worked. So he's put in the Hall of Fame in 2005, and if you talk to somebody who's not a hockey fan and they say, well, who's Cam Neely? I don't know who Cam Neely is. Just say, he's Seabass. No Dumb and Dumber? He's Seabass. And it's one of the greatest cameos in the history of movies, as far as I'm concerned. It is Cam Neely's turn as Seabass. Now, September 25th of 2007, he's named vice president of the Bruins, and then June 26, 2010, June 16th, 2010, he's named team president. And a year later, he would hold up a Stanley Cup as president of the Boston Bruins in Vancouver. They beat the Canucks. The team that decided, we need a center, we can give them this Neely kid and a first rounder, and we can get that help down the middle. And eventually, Cam Neely gets his ring at the expense of the Stanley Cup hopefuls in Vancouver. So it was really quite incredible in 2011 to see all that come full circle, and Neely ends up the victor. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below, as always. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through. You just happened upon this video. And yes, there was always that debate about all of these injuries and whether or not it all started with the Samuelsson hit. That was always the belief within Boston fandom, and there really isn't any telling us that that wasn't the case, because after that hit, he was never quite able to play again. And yeah, and that's why as many people hated Ulf Samuelsson back then as they did, and there's plenty who still probably do. All right, thank you guys for all your support. Do hit like and subscribe, and I will talk to you again soon.